Hi there, we are up to clip number 9 of our 10-part knowledge building series that is specifically for upper primary teachers. It happens that children get to us in the upper primary in years 3, 4, 5, and 6, and they are wobbly on the phonics. And I've spoken before in this series about sometimes that comes about simply because your school is quite new to structured literacy. Sometimes you get a bunch of kids from different schools and your existing students are strong on their phonics, but perhaps they are not. But for whatever the reason, you may find it necessary to spend time in year 3, 4, 5, and 6 consolidating phonics. Now, you are not going to do that instead of morphology. We ideally don't want to be sending children out of the classroom to miss core instruction so that they can get the phonics. And I'd suggest to you that that's probably not necessary. When we are looking at consolidating, often children have sort of this fundamental level of understanding, but they don't yet know the full complexity of the code and necessarily, particularly around spelling, how to spell with it. So you may have a bunch of students in your year 3 to 6 classroom who can read, reasonably well, but their spelling leaves a lot to be desired. So there's something for everyone. Those children who need this work for the basics will get it, and those children who need it for spelling will get it. And those children who are our high flyers, who maybe have it, but it's time to extend them, guess what? We can look after them too without breaking off into small groups. Now, what is this magical thing you're telling us about, Jocelyn? Well, it's not magic. It is good, strong instruction that is explicit and walks children through engaging with the complexity of the code step by step. Now, I'm going to share something of mine with you, but know that you don't have to have my stuff to bring this to life. You may have resources and tools or a program in your school already that does this. And so I'm showing you mine, but know that I'm not saying I've got something magical that everyone else doesn't have. So the Reading Success in Action series is mine that I have written, and these are tools to help you organise content and to structure your teaching. And so in an upper primary classroom, rather than be 5 days a week, for half an hour, we might be looking at 3 days a week for 25 minutes. And so we probably need a little bit less of this now. But if you feel that the majority of your class needs the half an hour, take the half an hour. Or the 40 minutes or whatever it happens to be. I don't know your students, so I can't give you a 100% you should. So you need to use your teacher judgment about the needs of your students. But essentially what it can look like, we can say, I've skipped to the wrong page, but that's not how. So here we go. What it can look like is we've learned 3 representations. I'm trying to get it in focus. 3 representations of I, the split digraph I, the IGH, and the IE. And now we're going to learn about that long letter I, like in mind and kind and find, and the Y on the end, as in apply and rely and notify, but also not at the end in words like dynamite. So the Y for the long I. So having the word list in front of you, knowing how you can differentiate within the lesson. So you've got your core words, but then your extension words into your multisyllable there will enable you to provide that same core structure for your lesson and the same content, but you can differentiate between the children in the words that you give them. Now, there's teacher background knowledge here. That's important because we often say, well, geez, I didn't learn any of this at school, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be doing. So 3 times a week you can engage in, there's a 5-day sequence of teaching, but you take the bits that work for you. You can do some word sorts, which is not about having 20,000 little pieces of paper. It's about the children ruling up a table on a whiteboard, and you say, well, which column will you put apply versus sigh in? And they've got to think about it and think about the spelling, and in the background knowledge information there's the information to tell you when there are spelling guidelines to follow. But we need to take this work beyond just the word level. We need to take it to sentence level. And so that's where dictation sentences can come in. Now, if you have Reading Success in Action 3, this is page 24, you'll be able to go to the long I unit and see that you've got dictation sentences. Each sentence has 1 representation of I. Then we've got dictation sentences with all the new stuff that they've learned. So the Y for the I and the letter I by itself for the sound I. And then there's sentences that have all of the things that they've learned, or the 5 ways and if I couldn't get them all in, it's 4 ways of spelling I within the one sentence, as well as some extension words. So for your high flyers, there's work there as well. But the way that you can link this with your morphology, so we would, a good structured literacy block is like a permaculture garden. Everything has multiple purposes and everything is interconnected. So you can link spelling and morphology detour to this phonics work, and that can be your students' introduction to morphology. And again, if you've got reading success in action 3, you'll see that every unit has a spelling and morphology detour there. And we're looking specifically in this unit at suffixing conventions for spelling. So you don't have to go all the way back in the upper primary years to, that straight phonics lesson like you see in the foundation or year 1. You can make this age appropriate and engaging. It can support your children who need the nuts and bolts and those who are extending as well. That can happen, and you can do it in 3 little chunks so that you are able to get everything else in as well, because it's really hard to fit it in. But I want to say to you that if you can avoid taking your students out for small group work, that's really important. I will say, though, that there will potentially be some students for whom that is not enough. And so if it's not enough, if they need highly rigorous, very small chunk, highly intensive, going all the way back to the start work, as a school, I think that really it's unfair to expect every teacher in the upper primary to manage those students on their own. So having a whole school approach that may involve some withdrawal work, that sometimes that's unavoidable, but really have a think about how can we as classroom teachers work together? How can we as a leadership team support our teachers? What is our response to intervention with our tier 1, our tier 2 and our tier 3 looking like in our school, so that we can have every child get exactly what they need without pushing teachers to the point of breakdown because they just simply can't do it all on their own. So phonics can happen. You can consolidate the phonics without abandoning everything else, but sometimes it's a little bit of a juggling act, but it's absolutely possible. So I hope there's something there useful for you that you can take away and apply in your own classroom, and I'll see you in the next clip.